We look at the Torah as something that enslaves us, something that constricts us, something that limits us, something that prevents me from expressing the freedom and beauty of my soul. But it's exactly the opposite. Shalom, everyone. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about a mitzvah that we often do not appreciate, and that is the mitzvah of counting the Omer. What was the Omer? The Omer was a measure of barley that was brought on the second day of Pesach, and its function actually was to permit you to eat the newly grown grain. There is an issur in Eretz Yisrael, at least, of what is called chadash, new grain, and one cannot eat the grain of the new year until the Korban HaOmer is brought. The Torah then says that usfartim lachem, you begin to count the Omer from the day after Pesach, meaning the second day of Pesach. In Eretz Yisrael, that is already Chol HaMoed. In Chutz La'aretz, it's observed as the second day of Yom Tov. And we count 7 weeks until the holiday of Shavuos. And every single day we do count what is called the counting of the Omer. I don't want to get too involved in technicalities. There is a big machlokas among the Rishonim. If Bisman Hazeh, in this day and age, it is a Torah commandment or only rabbinic. Tosfos says in Menachos that since the Torah says you start the counting of the Omer from the bringing of the Omer sacrifice, the implication would be that when there's no Beit HaMikdash and there's no Omer sacrifice, you would not be obligated to count, and therefore the counting of the Omer Bisman Hazeh is a rabbinic enactment, Zecher LaMikdash, to remember the Beit HaMikdash. That is opinion number 1. Opinion number 2 is the Shita of the Rambam, who says that the counting of the Omer is independent of the Korban of the Omer, and even when there's no Korban Omer, you have to count 49 days. Be it as it may, whether it is a Torah commandment or a rabbinic commandment, what is the significance of counting the days between Pesach and Shavuos? And I think there's a very important lesson here. Pesach is, of course, the holiday of freedom. We have been liberated. Shavuos is the holiday of receiving God's Torah. By counting the Omer, you are creating a linkage, you are creating a connection between the holiday of freedom and the holiday of responsibility, to remind us all that freedom in and of itself is not the purpose of life. Freedom is valuable only insofar as it gives me the conditions to be able to serve God and to submit to a moral law that is greater than me. You know, people make a very big mistake when they say the purpose of my life is to be free. Free to do what? Free to be what? Even Erich Fromm, he happened to be Jewish, not religious in any way, but he was a disciple of Sigmund Freud, another Jew who happened not to be religious. But Erich Fromm once said, we make a very big mistake when we define freedom as freedom from something. That's only a negative. True freedom is freedom towards something. And therefore, the counting of the Omer makes the very essential point that don't look at Pesach and Shavuos as 2 different holidays. Rather, it is Shavuos that gives meaning and purpose and structure and direction to Pesach. Indeed, our Chazal point this out in a very graphic way. The grain offering that is brought as the Omer is barley, and Shavuos, another grain offering is brought, which are wheat loaves of bread. Chazal say barley, at least before the invention of cholent, was commonly eaten by animals. Wheat is bread eaten by human beings. A Pesach without a Shavuos, you're just a wild animal. It is Shavuot that converts the animal liberation to the freedom of human dignity. And it is the counting of the Omer that makes us aware of it. In fact, the Ramban has, in a very striking way, the Ramban compares the whole Omer period to a Chol HaMoed. Of course, Pesach has its own Chol HaMoed, but the concept is Pesach and Shavuos are one holiday joined by the Chol HaMoed of the counting of the Omer. Now, be careful not to abuse that. If you tell your boss you don't work during Chol HaMoed, you don't show up for the whole period of the Omer, your job might not be waiting for you after that period of time. But spiritually, the concept is it's a joinder, it's a fusion, it's a connection. Pesach without Shavuos, you're a wild animal, you're free. But free to do what? Free to be what? Shavuot, Matan Torah. In political terms, there is no freedom without responsibility. The great Indian poet Tagore, who had won the Nobel Prize for Literature, I believe in the 1920s, and he was not Jewish. I don't even know if he knew a Jew. But he once expressed it in a beautiful way. A human soul is like a violin string. A violin string is capable of the most beautiful music. But imagine if you just took a loose string and you put it on the kitchen table. Totally free, totally unfettered, not tied down in any way. You won't be able to get any music out of it. It is only when it's tied down, when it's committed, so to speak, it's on the instrument bridge, that the music within can be expressed. And that is a marvelous metaphor for the life of a Jew. We sometimes look at the Torah in a wrong way. We look at the Torah as something that enslaves us, something that constricts us, something that limits us, something that prevents me from expressing the freedom and beauty of my soul. But it's exactly the opposite. It's precisely in tying yourself down to God that the beauty of your soul and your true inner freedom gets revealed. And that is what we think about every one of the 49 days of the counting of the Omer. The movement from animal to human. The movement from hedonism to submission to the will of God. And that will of God is not an enslaver or a burden. That will of God enables the realization of my deepest personality, the goodness, the greatness, the beauty, the radiance that is within our neshamas. So, as the saying goes, as we count every day, let's make every day count. And that is the mitzvah of the counting of the Omer.